I sold the car this morning. Consider it back rent. My father didn't even look at me. He just threw a crumpled wad of bills into the mud at my feet. $200. That was apparently the trade-in value for the black Audi I had spent 3 years paying off. Dad, that car is mine. I paid for every cent of it. You just held the title for the insurance discount. My name is on the title, Valerie. That means it's my car. He wiped grease on his work pants like he hadn't just robbed his own daughter. And I decided Brittany's cosmetic line needs the capital more than you need to sit at coffee shops playing on your laptop. He pointed to the 2 black garbage bags sitting in the driveway. I can't support a 28-year-old who pretends to work while her sister actually tries to build something. So grab your trash and get off my property. You're evicted. The front door slammed. The porch light clicked off. And just like that, I was standing in the dark with nothing but $200 and a bag of clothes. The Motel 6 off the highway smelled like bleach and bad choices. I stripped off my muddy jeans, scrubbed the dirt from my skin until it turned red, and sat down at the wobbly desk. Most people would be crying right now. They would be calling friends, begging for a couch to crash on. I opened my laptop. My father called it playing on computers. He thought I answered emails for a living. The industry calls it forensic auditing. When a Fortune 500 company starts bleeding cash and doesn't know why, they send me to find the wound. I find the embezzlers, the hidden accounts, the leaks. I speak the only language that never lies. Math. I opened a blank spreadsheet and typed a single header. The family ledger. Row 1. The Audi, $45,000. Row 2. The shop's payroll I covered last winter, when he claimed the bank made a mistake. $12,000. Row 3. The loan for mom's surgery he swore he'd pay back. $8,000. I stared at the sum. He didn't just evict a daughter. He evicted his biggest investor. I minimized that window and logged into my firm's terminal. It took 3 clicks to access the county's UCC filings and cross-reference them with the bank's distressed asset database. The truth flashed on the screen in brutal, red numbers. Rogers Auto Body wasn't just struggling. It was terminal. A commercial loan with Regional Trust Bank. Principal balance, $480,000. Status, 89 days delinquent. If he went 90 days, the bank would foreclose. I checked the date. Today was day 89. The bank was scheduled to package this toxic debt into a bundle and auction it off to collection agencies this Friday. They expected to get maybe 10 cents on the dollar. I grabbed my phone and dialed Marcus, my contact at the bank's distressed asset division. He picked up on the second ring. Marcus, I said, keeping my voice flat. Lot 404. The commercial paper on the auto shop in Pierce County. Valerie? That's garbage debt, he laughed. We're dumping it Friday. Pull it from the auction. Sell it privately to my shell company, Vantage Holdings. I'll wire a 20% premium over the asking price. Cash. Tonight. There was a pause. Money talks louder than policy. If the wire hits by midnight, he said, it's yours. The confirmation email arrived at 2:14 in the morning. I looked at the PDF attached. Lender, Vantage Holdings LLC. I closed my laptop and finally lay down on the stiff motel mattress. I wasn't Roger's daughter anymore. Legally, I was his senior secured creditor. I met Brittany at the Gilded Bean downtown. She was already 20 minutes late. When she finally breezed in, she placed a brand new Louis Vuitton Neverfull on the table, the exact shade of beige that cost $2,000. My car, her bag. The math was nauseatingly simple. Dad said you were sleeping in a motel, she said, taking a sip of her oat milk latte. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just checked her reflection in her phone screen. That's grim, Val. But honestly, maybe it's the wake-up call you needed. You can't just rely on Dad forever. I dug my nails into my palms under the table. You're right. I forced my voice to sound small, defeated. I'm leaving Seattle tomorrow. But before I go, I wanted to offer a peace offering. I slid the thick document across the marble table. Talent Management Agreement. I know you hate the boring side of business. I lied smoothly. Taxes, liability, vendor contracts. If you're going to be a CEO, you need protection. Brittany flipped the page, looking bored. I'm not reading 50 pages, Val. Just read Clause 14. I tapped the paper. I put this in specifically for you. It's a liability shield. It designates me as the voting manager for your share of the company. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means if the company gets sued, or goes into debt, or the cosmetic line fails, I whispered, leaning in. I take the fall legally. I go to court. You keep the profits. But I take the risk. Her face softened. Laziness is a more powerful motivator than greed. She didn't want to run a business. She wanted to play dress-up. The idea of dumping the legal risk on the sister she despised was too good to resist. So, you handle the boring stuff, and I'm the face? Exactly. You're the star. I'm just the shield. She uncapped her pen. She signed her name with a flourish, looping the B like a heart. Greed is predictable. Most people think the most dangerous weapon in business is a lawsuit. It's not. It's a pen in the hand of someone who thinks they're smarter than they are. Brittany thought she was signing a waiver to avoid work. In reality, Clause 14 was an irrevocable proxy. It transferred her 10% shareholder voting rights directly to me for the next 5 years. Combined with the debt I bought last night, I now controlled the bank and the minority vote. Thanks, Val, she said, blowing on the ink. Try not to screw it up. I won't. I put the contract in my bag. I'm going to run this family exactly the way it deserves. 2 weeks of silence is a long time in the debt business. For Roger, it was a victory lap. He thought he had scared me off. He thought the eviction was the final word. He was wrong. It was just the quiet before the foreclosure. The bait was simple. My shell company, Vantage Holdings, hired Mr. Henderson, a shark in a $3,000 suit, to make the call. The pitch was designed to stroke Roger's ego until it purred. We represent a private equity firm interested in restructuring your debt and injecting capital. Your shop has untapped potential. Untapped potential. That phrase is catnip for mediocre men. Roger didn't just bite the hook, he swallowed it whole. I watched the security feed from the conference room adjacent to the main boardroom. The camera showed the lobby of Henderson's firm, 50 floors up, walls of glass overlooking the Seattle skyline. The elevator doors slid open. Roger stepped out wearing his funeral and court suit, a navy polyester blend that was tight in the shoulders. Brittany trailed behind him, scrolling on her phone, looking bored. Put the phone away, Roger hissed, loud enough for the receptionist to hear. You're about to see how real business is done. This is the big leagues, Britt. Not that internet nonsense your sister plays at. He marched up to the front desk. I'm here to see Mr. Henderson. Roger's auto body. The partners are expecting me. He leaned on the marble counter, expanding his chest. He wasn't just a mechanic with a failing shop anymore. In his head, he was a tycoon. Of course, sir. They are waiting for you in boardroom A. See? Roger winked at Brittany. Respect. That's what you get when you build something with your hands. On my screen, I saw them strut down the hallway. Roger adjusted his tie. Brittany checked her makeup in the reflection of a glass wall. They looked like they were walking into a coronation. I stood up and smoothed the lapels of my blazer. My reflection in the dark monitor looked calm. Cold. Showtime. The boardroom smelled of lemon polish and intimidation. A 20-foot slab of mahogany dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than my first car. Roger sat at the far end, spinning slowly in the vice chairman's seat. He looked like a king in a rented castle. Brittany sat next to him, scrolling through TikTok, her feet propped up on the table leg. See this view? Roger gestured to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sound. This is where the big dogs eat, Britt. You want respect? You force them to bring you to the top floor. I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. Roger stopped spinning. His smile vanished. Valerie? He stood up, his face flushing a mottled red. How the hell did you get past security? Did you follow us? Brittany looked up, annoyed. Seriously, Val? You're embarrassing us. Go wait in the car. I didn't break stride. I walked past them, past the expensive water bottles they hadn't opened, past the lawyer, Mr. Henderson, who was quietly packing his briefcase. I walked straight to the empty chair at the head of the table, and I sat down. Get up, Roger snapped. That seat is for the managing partner of Vantage Holdings. You are 5 seconds away from being arrested for trespassing. I placed a single manila folder on the mahogany surface. The sound echoed in the silence. I am the managing partner of Vantage Holdings. My voice was quiet, but it hit the walls like a gunshot. Roger blinked. He looked at Mr. Henderson. What is she talking about? Henderson. Get this lunatic out of here. Mr. Henderson didn't reach for the phone. He stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. He looked at Roger with the disinterested pity of a coroner looking at a corpse. Actually, Mr. Clark, Henderson said smoothly, my retainer was to facilitate the introduction between the debtor, that's you, and the note holder. Since the note holder is now present, my billable hours are concluded. He picked up his briefcase. Good luck. The door clicked shut behind him. The sound was final. The air in the room seemed to vanish. He is confused, Roger stammered, looking at the closed door, then back at me. You? You bought the debt? I slid the folder across the long table. It stopped inches from his hand. Loan assignment deed. Authorized by Regional Trust Bank at 2 in the morning. Principal balance, $480,000. Holder, Vantage Holdings LLC. Sole proprietor. Valerie Clark. Roger opened the folder. His eyes scanned the legal jargon, the stamps, the signatures. His hands started to shake, rattling the paper. "You bought my loan," he whispered. Then he looked up, and a twisted smile broke across his face. It wasn't fear. It was mockery. He tossed the folder back at me. The papers scattered across the polished wood. "You idiot," he laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You spent what? 400 grand? To buy a bad loan?" He leaned back, crossing his arms over his chest. The arrogance flooded back into him, stronger than before. "You always were bad at business, Valerie. You forgot one little thing. My shop is an LLC. Limited liability company." He enunciated every syllable like he was teaching a toddler. "That means the debt belongs to the company, not me. You can foreclose. Go ahead. You'll get a garage full of rusted tools and a lease you can't pay. You can't touch my house. You can't touch my truck. You can't touch my retirement." He pointed a finger at me, triumph gleaming in his eyes. "You just spent your entire life savings to buy a worthless piece of paper. The corporate veil protects me. I win." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had thrown my clothes in the mud 2 weeks ago. He really believed he was untouchable. He believed the law was a wall he could hide behind. He forgot that I build wrecking balls for a living. "You're right, Dad." I reached into my bag for the second folder. The LLC protects you, usually. I opened the second folder. It contained a single, yellowed document scanned from the bank's archives. "Do you remember 2015, Dad? The shop was expanding. You needed a bridge loan. The bank wouldn't lend to a risky LLC without a safety net. They needed a human being on the hook." I spun the paper around so he could read it. "You signed this. A personal guarantee." Roger stared at the signature at the bottom of the page. It was his. Bold, loopy, arrogant. The signature of a man who never thought he'd lose. "That was 10 years ago," he stammered. The color was draining from his face, leaving it the color of old ash. "That expired." "Debts don't expire, Roger. They compound." I tapped the paragraph in bold. "The guarantor agrees to be personally liable for the full indebtedness of the borrower, waiving all rights to corporate shielding. The LLC is gone. The wall is down. It's just you and me." He slumped back in his chair. He looked small. The tycoon who had strutted into the lobby 10 minutes ago was gone. In his place was a 56-year-old mechanic with bad knees and no leverage. "Now," I said, opening my laptop. "Let's tidy up the management structure." I looked at Brittany. She was frozen, clutching her phone like a shield. "As the voting manager for the minority shareholder," I announced, my voice echoing off the glass walls, "I am formally moving to terminate the CEO for gross misappropriation of assets. Specifically, the sale of a company vehicle, my Audi, for personal gain." I raised my hand. "I vote yes. The motion carries." I turned back to Roger. "You're fired." "You can't do that," he shouted, standing up. "It's my shop. I built it. And you leveraged it until it broke. Now for the financials. I am hereby accelerating the debt. The full principal balance of $480,000 is due immediately." I checked my watch. "You have until close of business. Can you pay?" Roger's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Brittany, begging her to say something. Do something. She just looked down at her Louis Vuitton bag, refusing to meet his eyes. She wasn't going to save him. She had signed the contract to avoid risk. She wasn't about to jump in front of a bullet now. "I don't have that kind of cash," Roger whispered. "Then I am enforcing the guarantee. I am placing a lien on your personal residence at 42 Willow Creek Drive. I am freezing your personal checking accounts. And I am filing to garnish your SEP IRA retirement fund." "You would take my house?" His voice cracked. "Valerie, I raised you. I put a roof over your head. We're family." "Family?" I repeated the word. It tasted like rust. "You sold my car 2 weeks ago because the title was in your name. You looked me in the eye and said it was just business. You said I needed to learn how the real world works." I stood up and packed the folders back into my bag. "Well, Dad, this is the real world. I'm taking your house because the debt is in your name. Why is it smart business when you do it to me, but cruel when I do it to you?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. I texted security. 2 minutes later, uniformed guards appeared at the door. "Escort Mr. Clark off the premises. He is no longer authorized to represent the company." I didn't watch them leave. I walked to the elevator and rode it down to the lobby alone. My Uber was waiting at the curb. It was a black Audi A4, identical to the one I lost. I slid into the back seat and opened my laptop one last time. I pulled up the family ledger spreadsheet, the column that listed the car, the payroll, the emotional debt. I highlighted it all. I hit delete. The balance was 0. The legal term for what happened next is execution of judgment. But it felt more like a correction of the natural order. The foreclosure process on 42 Willow Creek Drive took exactly 4 months and 12 days. I didn't attend the auction. My lawyer, a woman named Sarah who doesn't smile, handled the proceedings. The house sold for $612,000. The math was brutal. First, the $480,000 in principal debt was paid to Vantage Holdings. Then, $42,000 in accrued interest and penalty fees. Then, $28,000 in legal costs. By the time the dust settled, Roger received a check for the remaining equity. $62,000. That was all he had to show for 30 years of arrogance. It wasn't enough to buy a new house. It was barely enough to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs for a few years. Brittany didn't fare much better. With the company accounts frozen and her influencer allowance cut off, reality hit her with the force of a freight train. The last I heard, she was working at a kiosk in the South Center Mall, selling phone cases for $15 an hour. She tried to sue me to void the proxy contract. But the judge, a stern woman who clearly read the fine print, dismissed the case in 10 minutes. Justice wasn't loud. It was just a gavel banging against a block of wood, followed by silence. 3 months later, a letter arrived at my office. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was jagged, angry. The pen pressed so hard into the paper it nearly tore through. I stood by the window overlooking the city, holding the envelope. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt nothing. Just the mild curiosity of an archaeologist looking at a fossil. I opened it. Valerie, it read. You made your point. You're tough. I guess I taught you too well. But this has gone far enough. I'm living in a complex near the airport. The neighbors are loud. I'm an old man, Val. You can't leave your father like this. I did what I did to make you strong. If I hadn't pushed you, you wouldn't be rich. We should talk. I'm willing to forgive you. I read that line twice. I'm willing to forgive you. He still thought he was the protagonist. He still thought this was a story about him teaching me a lesson, rather than him suffering the consequences of his own greed. He rewrote history to make his abuse look like mentorship. There was a time when those words would have hooked me. I would have called him, argued, tried to explain my pain. I would have given him the one thing he craved more than money, my attention. Instead, I walked over to the shredder. I fed the letter into the machine. I watched the blades turn his excuses into confetti. I didn't reply. I didn't call. Indifference is the only revenge that lasts forever. That Thanksgiving, I didn't go back to the house on Willow Creek Drive. There was no house to go back to. I hosted dinner at my own place, a condo with a view of the sound that I own, deed and title. I invited Marcus from the bank. I invited Sarah, my lawyer. I invited 2 friends from college who had let me sleep on their couch when I was starting out. We ate turkey. We drank wine. We laughed. No one yelled. No one made me feel small. No one told me my job wasn't real. I looked around the table and realized something profound. Family isn't a blood type, it's a safety net. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't falling, I was flying. So, if you are watching this, and you feel like you are drowning in the expectations of people who are supposed to love you, listen to me closely. I learned 3 rules in the fire, and I want to give them to you. Rule number 1. The title deed of your life. Never ever let someone else hold the legal title to your assets or your achievements. If you pay for the car, put your name on it. If you build the business, keep the equity. Toxic people love to blur the lines of ownership so they can claim your success as their own. Clarify the lines, put it in writing. If they get offended by a contract, it's because they plan to rob you. Rule number 2. The sunk cost of blood. In economics, a sunk cost is money you've already lost and can't get back. The worst mistake investors make is throwing more money at a bad deal just because they've already spent so much. Relationships are the same. Just because you spent 28 years trying to please your parents doesn't mean you owe them 28 more. You cannot love someone into respecting you. If the investment yields only pain, cut your losses. Walk away. It's not cruelty. It's survival. Rule number 3. Solvency is the best revenge. People think revenge is screaming. It's not. Revenge is success so undeniable that they have to lie to themselves just to sleep at night. Don't key their car. Don't shout on the front lawn. Go build a fortress of success so high that they can't even see over the walls. Let them live in the shadow of the life they said you couldn't have. My name is Valerie. I don't have a father anymore, but I have a ledger that balances perfectly. I have a home that is mine. And most importantly, I am free. Check your life today. Who is driving your car while you pay for the gas? Who is living in your head rent-free? Maybe it's time you pulled over and kicked them out.